What's up, HMG fam? It's your boy MSG back with a brand new series called Behind the Curtain, reading Vince Russo's Forgiven. That's right, we are going to read Vince Russo's Forgiven chapter by chapter. So if you like what you see here, drop a comment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and it'll let me know that you enjoy this content, and I'll put out some more chapters for you. So sit back and enjoy Vince Russo's Forgiven.
Chapter 2, Tribute to Oscar Madison. So, a good writer hates to write, but loves to have written. End quote. I first heard that line in my early teens, stated by none other than Oscar Madison, portrayed by Jack Klugman on the TV sitcom The Odd Couple. The story goes something like this. Oscar had been paid money up front by a publisher to write a book pertaining to sports, but every time he sat down at his typewriter, the typewriter, yes, he used a typewriter in those days. The blank page lay limp and lifeless before him, growing bigger and wider with every dripping second. So you see, Oscar hated to write, as I think most writers do. There's just something about the blank page, the emptiness, the coldness, the intimidation. Top that with the pressure of a deadline, and you have something that's quite unappealing. Yes, good writers hate to write, but oh my, that finished product, that masterpiece in which every word is carefully and methodically laid in just the right place in just the right order, the moment when the little numbers on the bottom of each page add up to another number that is now significant, the finished work, there is nothing like it. But man, I hate to write, says Vince Russo. I always have. It's such a chore. As I mentioned earlier, there are a few things in life that are more intimidating than an empty white page staring you right in the face, not saying a word. It's just that look. The empty stare begging you to dress its body with something, anything. You turn on TV, you write, you have a cup of coffee, and you write, you check your email, and you write, you spell check, and you write. This agonizing process seems endless until you finally reach those two glorious words, the end. For 6 months, starting on January 10th, 2000, I went through this agonizing journey. So Vince Russo continues, for 6 months, starting in January of 2000, I went through this agonizing journey. I sat at a computer in the back of my store, a seedy warehouse in Marietta, Georgia, and tortured myself through this process. Between customers, I carefully plotted each word with the precision of a Hollywood plastic surgeon. A little cut here, tiny tuck there, trim the fat in just the right place. Yeah, this was going to be my legacy. This was going to be my outsell. King, Seuss, Stern, all of them, because this was my life in professional wrestling. And you should have seen it. I mean, it was all there. Everything you ever wanted to read in all the other wrestling books, but wouldn't. Simply because those wrestlers as authors were under contract to Vince McMahon. So the fact is, he was the only one who got them the book deal in the first place. Okay. They certainly couldn't write anything to taint the good name of his company, even if they wanted to. But me, I was free to say whatever I wanted about whomever I wanted. As a timeless cliche in wrestling goes, this one was going to be no holds barred. I was dropping the dime on everybody. I had known everything they had ever done. I was going to be the younger brother who spent weeks collecting all the evidence on all the older brothers until I had just enough to tell Mom. Man, this was going to be bad. Heads were just going to roll. They were going to explode. And wrestlers who were husbands, as we say on Long Island, forget about it. They were in for the worst of it, because no matter how bad I was at times, it's pretty good, Russo. No matter how buzzed I was at times, through it all, I never cheated on my wife. To me, this would be the ultimate disrespect. How you doing? To the mother of my children. Call it the Italian in me, but I've always had a massive problem with that. He continues on by saying, man, you should have read this thing. I clutched it to my chest, tighter, and with more love than I had ever held in any of my own 3 kids. Yeah, this was my real baby. I mean, you just had to see it that way. It was crafted. It was sewn together with every expletive you have ever heard, a tapestry of curse word after curse word after curse word. Have you ever been Have you ever heard an uncensored Colin Farrell interview? If you haven't experienced this in your lifetime, it's a must. I recently saw him on the independent film channel's Table for Five, a dinner setting format where people in the biz openly talk about the biz. Talk about Colin Farrell on the independent channel. On this particular episode, there was a lot of heavy hitters. Farrell sat there breaking bread with the likes of Ben Affleck, Kevin Smith, Jennifer Garner, to name a few. Let's just say that the color spewing out of Farrell's mouth that day was so offensive that poor innocent Miss Garner was 13 going on 30 weeks before the movie ever hit the big screen. I mean, man, this was Jennifer Garner. Did Farrell forget she was at the table? I mean, do you expect me to believe he didn't have the discipline to edit himself out, at least until dessert? In my line of business, it's called shock value. You sandwich vial on top of vial, then force feed it to customers watching and listening. In my heyday, I was no different. My language was plain filthy. There's no adjective that describes it better. I swore at home, at work, in front of my kids, my wife, my parents, on the phone, on paper, in emails, and most certainly in front of the boys, the wrestlers. There, it was all acceptable because it was the only language we understood. Looking back now, I really don't understand my logic. In my late 30s and early 40s, did I think it was cool to stay in the air with my words? Was it hip? Cutting edge? What was my point? I mean, I openly spout out curse words after curse words while I was on the phone in front of my daughter, my baby girl. Was that cool? Was that what I wanted her growing up and doing? Fucking Barney's over. We changed the fucking channel and put on some fucking Rugrats. It was indeed colorful. Yep, in my hands I had the holy grail. You see, throughout my life I'd gone through phases of what I wanted to be when I grew up, as we all did. He continued on by saying, I'll lay it out in stages for you. As a child, it was Batman's. Preteen, Tom Jones. Young teen, Willie Mays. Teen, Gene Simmons. Young adult, and an author. And there was always something about wanting to write my own book. It just seemed like it would be a great accomplishment, a legacy, something I could leave behind for the grandkids. And here it was. I had done it, even though I wouldn't have allowed my own kids to read it. My entire life, from watching Hulk Hogan as a kid to being sued by him as an adult, it was all right there. My entire 40 plus years in 300 plus pages. This was going to catapult me to the next level. Oprah, Ellen, Katie Couric, Conan O'Brien. They were going to stand in line to book me for their Gab Fest. I was Rocky Balboa standing on the very top of the Philadelphia Museum of Modern Art, screaming at the top of my lungs, "Yo, Adrian, I did it!" The last thing I ever expected, not even in my wildest dreams, was that I'd spend the next few months reworking it. Despite all the work and all the energy, all the love, it was back to the keyboard. However, even though the colorful language had to say bye-bye, replaced with obligatory, and then it's laid out here, like, you know, with your exclamation point, @ pound sign, dollar sign, percentage. The old manuscript has been basically intact. So you can see firsthand where the old Vince was and where the new Vince is. Throughout the book, there are also various revelations highlighted in another font, where the new Vince comments exclusively on the old Vince. What do I mean by this old Vince / new Vince thing? Isn't Vince Russo? Okay, here goes. The original book, in its raw form, was never going to be published because I wasn't going to allow it. The reason being, what once made me gleam now made me grimace. What once made me laugh now made me cry. What once made me so proud now made me ashamed. That's what God will do to you. And then he continues on by saying, the reworking of the original manuscript of Forgiven, originally titled Welcome to Bizarro Land, is extremely symbolic. In one day, in one moment, God had wiped out an entire lifetime. In one day, in one moment, God had wiped out an entire lifetime. With just one revelation, he created an entirely new man. To this very second, I am shocked by the things I do, the things I say, the things I write. This isn't me. It can't be. What happened to that other guy, the swearing, absentee father, unloving husband, work-driven sweetheart, who used to live in the exact house, wear the exact clothes, sit at this very desk? That guy is dead. Passed away. Na 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 na, na 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 na, hey hey hey, goodbye. Once again, in trying to break it down to something simple, let me relate it to Hollywood. I know there was a Stepford Wives, but what about the Stepford husbands? I mean, I could write the thing. I'm already playing the part. On the outside, looks the same, acts the same, dresses the same, but on the inside, somebody else. Some different being, different temperament, different agenda, different personality, different heart. Only one problem. This isn't Stepford. This is Marietta, Georgia, and this is very real. So how did this happen? After 42 years, how did one man become a totally new creature? How does Hyde turn into Jekyll? How does a fire-breathing dragon turn into the town's gentle mayor? My H.R. Puffinstew reference from this book. How does evil turn to good? How does darkness turn to light? To understand the end of life, we'll have to go back and examine the beginning. So that is the end of chapter 2.